At this time, I would like to ask Travis Taylor to come forward and speak with the council. Hi, Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Travis Taylor. I reside at 5130 Blackmore Road, Casper, Wyoming. I'm just going to go through quick history here real quick of liquor license number 5. I acquired the license in 2016, and initially it was intended for a development site for Harmony Hills. That's what I was initially going to be a part of. Over a month's time, there was issues with, and it was an underserved area, Casper, but due to location difficulties and change of price, and there was also access issues that we ran into. So unfortunately, that site fell through. And then unfortunately in 2017, I went through a divorce, which through those proceedings to decide what assets went where, that cost me 2 years. So I didn't even know if I was going to end up with a license, have to transfer it, sell it. I didn't know if I was going to even end up with it, which cost me time. And then the license, with that said, was parked for those reasons. And at that time, it was still legal to park the licenses. And then as time progressed, the ordinance changed, and as that changed, then I moved or transferred the license to the commissary mall, and it's been active and in good standing at that location ever since. With that said, initially at the commissary mall, I had discussions with the owner to possibly renovate the entire commissary mall as a joint partnership, and I was there for a year. As you're there, you need a year or so to see, as far as volume, if the site's going to work out, and also if we were going to be able to transform together that site. As you know, it's a large site, so it had been a huge undertaking, and we both agreed that it wasn't cost effective for either one of us. In the meantime, we did 19 large catering events in the city and in the county, between the city and the county, in that time period. And then also, so as I came to the understanding that that location wasn't going to work out, COVID hit. So COVID's totally, as you guys already know, how devastating it's been, but it totally put a halt on anybody doing anything, transferring, building, and it's not an excuse, it's a fact. And so it's basically tied my hands from transferring, building, and even selling to a point. So this is where we stand right now. So what I'm here to ask that you please renew my license, and I'm highly motivated more so to market it, to sell it. And however, if there's an opportunity that comes along that I can't pass up, then I will transfer it. But what I'm here to tell you is that I will make sure that happens this calendar year, one way or the other. Because I also am not, I'm also equally motivated to get this license doing what it should do for me and the city, bottom line. So I'm agreeance. So that's what I'm going to do, if you please grant me my renewal.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councilman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Pacheco. Maybe a question for you, Mr. Taylor, or perhaps the city attorney. I guess I'm a little lost on what the difference would be between renewing your liquor license and allowing you to sell it, or us choosing not to renew it. I guess I'm not sure what the difference is between those two. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, Councilman, basically the renewal is just the annual obligation that the license holders have to come before the council, because remember, it's the city that owns the licenses, so they need to come to council and then ask for a renewal. And so for that reason, every one of the licenses that you authorize in a year gets examined on at least a yearly basis. And so that's really what we're here today to talk about, because this is why we were able to bring in Mr. Taylor, why he really kind of came to our attention, as well as the other liquor owners. Now, when Mr. Taylor had said, he would, consider if something came up, he may want to transfer it himself or sell it. I think he was talking about maybe transferring the location. If he found a great deal, he was able to move in and do something more likely to be successful and generate more revenue anyway, and then his current location. I believe that's what he meant, and if you want to ask of Mr. Taylor, that would be fine too. But I think that's the distinction here. It's just basically a transfer of location versus the sale to another party.
Yeah. You have more questions?
Well, if nobody else has other questions, sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman.
So I guess I'd like to know more about your current location at the Commissary Mall. What does that look like? I'm familiar with the building, but I haven't been in to see your location. So
It's a walk-in liquor store, and that's what it is. It's just a walk-in liquor store at the present time. And there were discussions to access water and possibly put in a lounge in there, but like I stated, when we decided not to renovate the building and to do it the proper way, then I just decided it's just best to leave it as it is and then to transfer to a different location.
thank you.
Councilman Kathy.
What are your current hours right now?
10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday.
Any other questions? Councilman.
So you have refrigeration and like cold storage versus dry storage and things like that?
At this point, no, I don't. It's just primarily just a walk-in liquor store. I don't have coolers or anything like that at the present time. And as I stated, when we're looking to transfer, I'm not going to put any kind of refrigeration or anything into the site when we're looking to transfer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm in real estate, and so I do know that there's a limited number of these licenses. And I also am aware of several people that have been looking for these licenses because they have a legitimate business that they want to take this and use this for. And I think it's kind of frustrating at the fact that this license has essentially been left not doing anything for 5 years, whereas these people who have a legitimate business plan, they're just missing the liquor license, and then you're holding this, but you have no real need for it.
I disagree. I understand completely, but like I just went through a series of events. It's unfortunate events, but that's the reason, and that's why we are where we are. But I totally agree with you that people are looking for them, and I have great business plans too. But I just had a series of events that put me to this point. But like I said, moving forward, that's why exactly I'm marketing it to sell, to your point, that people are looking for them, or transfer to a new location within this year that's going to be a higher volume, successful for the city and myself.
Councilperson.
Sorry, so my question is probably for John. I know that this has happened before, but maybe I don't understand the intricacies of what happens in the background. If the city owns the license, what does that mean to sell it? Are you almost like selling like some sort of like intangible right to the license to another individual? Because at the end of the day, it's our license.
You're correct about that, and it's very interesting now. Up until 2017, it was pretty easy. There was an intangible right to it. I mean, that was clearly stated by statute. The statutory language gave a preference to the retail liquor license owner to maintain that unless there were some good articulable provisions that the license should be denied. That was repealed in 2017, so effective in July the 1st of 2017. That all changed. So that makes it perhaps a little bit more difficult to see that there would be some type of an ownership interest or priority interest in the current owner. However, the legislature, when it took away that language about the preference right, they left in a statute that was about 2 sections below that saying, the person who has and is claiming a preference right can appeal to the district court, which certainly implies that there still is some type of intangible right, even though it is not nearly as well defined and probably not near as strong as would have existed back prior to July the 1st, 2017.
Anybody else? I think the only comment that I'll make is I'm okay with renewing this. However, I think we need to, I think Sean and I were the last, I don't think you were on it at the time. Maybe you were when the first time we came around with Mr. Taylor on renewing the license. And he came and asked for some variations on helping with him because we know that he went through some tough times and some issues. And I think Sean and I have also been on when we have also continued to say, yes, we'll give you some more time. But I think the patience of the council is kind of starting to run out. And so for me, I'm okay with renewing the license, but I think we need to put a timetable on when this needs to be done. And I'm going to certainly suggest that we have a timetable at least till September 1st that something needs to be done. We've played enough of the game, I think, and I think some time we need to kind of start moving forward with this and get this really moving and into the market and the economic development. So that's going to be my suggestion, and so comments on that. Councilman.
This would probably be a question for Mr. Henley. Can we put stipulations on the renewal of this license similar to the stipulations we have on other licenses about ownership, location, things like that?
You can. You have to have kind of the articulable reason. And I think that's the safer way to go. But I think certainly you could say, look, we are going to basically renew this license, but you're going to have to come back in on September 1 and explain to us the progress you've made. And if things don't look good then, we're going to be taking a hard look at you. And when you come back in here to renew for 2022, you better hope that you have something in, more than just a hope and a wish. You're going to need to see something tangible. So, that may give Mr. Taylor kind of a date where at least he knows he's going to have to come back in and talk with you. And again, in that discussion, that may provide a basis for you in the renewal process of 2022 to say, you just haven't done it. I mean, you got the license from somebody who didn't have, hadn't actually operated the license in 2 years. You've had it. It was a 2.5 year, 3 year process for you to get your doors open at the commissary mall, and that facility, you don't even have refrigeration for cold beer or chilled wine, that type of thing. And so we're going to see you back here on September, the first meeting in September, and you've made this representation to us that you will do something with this year. And so we're going to check up on you in September. And if he comes back in September and there's nothing that's been done, I think you can take note of that when it comes back up for renewal the following year to say, hey, look, we continued it this year without pressing you, because certainly there's some questions about that, whether this would be an actual operation, basically a building that would qualify as an ongoing facility for a packaged liquor store without any type of refrigeration and the like. But those would you'd have to, certify those and basically make findings in that regard if you were to actually withdraw the license this year. But hopefully you put him on notice, and this will give him a chance to get out from underneath. Because I know that these were expensive, because he did buy it before 2017, and I think they were pretty pricey then, just because you did have the renewal preference, and they were more limited. And I don't know if we'll get another liquor license this year or not with the census coming up or not. So I mean, he may actually lose money on this because we have another license out there that the city can offer to the public, but that may not be in the cards. I haven't heard that our population is going to grow to that extent, but it's a possibility. So it may behoove him to really try to get going on this.
Well, and I guess that was where my question was leading, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, Councilman.
That was where my question was leading, is I appreciate Mr. Pacheco's, Vice Mayor Pacheco wanting to put a September 1 on there, but by the same token, that then leads into this same type of a situation a year from now if nothing has happened, and then do you just immediately say you're done, or do we go ahead and put Mr. Taylor on notice now, saying that basically it's either sold or you have a viable going, cash flowing business, or it will not be renewed, and just transferring it or selling it to another LLC to be parked doesn't constitute selling the license, so to speak, because we've been down that road as well, is that the owner of a license starts another company, claims he sells it, shows the paperwork, but there's still never an attempt to legitimately put the license into use. And I think it's now time to start making those decisions, because as you said, you initially bought the license in, what, 14, did you say?
No. It was 2016.
In 16, okay. So we are going on, you bought it in 16, we're going on the 5th renewal.
I understand that, sir. That's
And I
why
understand the 2
That's why I went
years.
through this timeline.
But we just keep going, and there's a point that you call uncle.
I understand. I understand.
Okay. But that's all I'm trying to figure out. I'm not saying to deny it right now, okay? But I think we need to have something firm that something's going to be done within the next 12 months, that you should not expect a renewal next year if there isn't either a sale to a viable entity, or you are in business at another location with a viable business.
I understand.
So my suggestion would be to team off of that is I think we could have Mr. Taylor come in September 1 to get an update, what's happening, where we're at, and then let him know that come at the end of the calendar year, if we see no movement, he will ultimately lose the license. And so I think, was it 5 times? I think we've been patient. I think we've worked. I know there's been some extenuating circumstances, but we want this to be out there with economic development. We want this to happen. So that would be my suggestion. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Would it be September 7th? That'd be the first meeting of.
Yeah, September 7th. Thank you.
Ray, sir, with that said, if there's substantial movement that's already under, like whether it's construction or something's happening and it's not live yet by September 1st, there needs to be some strict language in there that protects me in that regard too, just because it's not operational by that date. I need a little bit of protection with that, please.
Mr. Henley.
We could put in there something about substantial completion or substantial progress. I know that you've heard this, though, before. I remember Councilman Hopkins at the prior hearing in April of 2018. I mean, we went into this same darn discussion. So yeah, I would leave it up to you, but I would think either substantial completion or substantial progress. Probably substantial progress would be, more fair to Mr. Taylor. Substantial completion, that has some pretty defined criteria, And if in fact he were to transfer, he found a great opportunity and he was going to actually put in a cocktail establishment or some other type of retail use, that may be hard to complete between now and September the 7th.
Okay. Carter, did you want to say something?
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, the other thing to keep in mind is that the renewal applications will actually be due in December of this year. And so there will be the opportunity to honor what it is that Mr. Taylor has offered this evening, where he said that the calendar year would be adequate time to transact this license or get the license in a very active, productive fashion. I think council will have a really good insight on September 7th, whether or not they can suggest to Mr. Taylor whether or not an application will be received in the early part of December. And I think that's very much in keeping with the spirit of what Mr. Taylor offered, and should be plenty of notice to the community if in fact that license will be available for your consideration this time next year, when they know in December that an application will be received or not.
Does that work, Travis?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Making sure they have that language in there to protect you as well.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
No, just a quick comment. If I agree with December, I can think of probably not a handful, maybe 2 or 3, basically testimonials of individuals in the community who wanted to bring in franchise opportunities, but because of the non-availability of these licenses, had to abandon said opportunity, which obviously hurts the community in sales tax dollars, jobs, development money, et cetera, et cetera. So I completely agree. I think December would be the way to go, but that has to be the line.
Thanks, council member. Anybody else? Great. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Yep. Can you go get the mayor? Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the liquor license renewals to please approach the lectern. At this time, I'd ask those individuals